Welcome to the Playful Domme, the Poly Wife, and the Virgin podcast, where we share our most intimate stories, experiences, and details of our love lives, our intimacy lives, our play lives, and giving you the opportunity to gaze in and get a glimpse of what could be possible in your life as well. As we share our stories, our adventures, we weave in tips, tricks, and techniques to help build your confidence, boost your courage, and give you the opportunity to ask for what you want in your life. Welcome to the podcast. Oh, and just a couple of quick thoughts before we get started. One, we are just everyday people. We are not professionals, licensed therapists, anything like that. This is for edutainment purposes only. This is not medical advice or legal advice, financial advice, nothing like that. Listen at your own discretion. And this is for mature audiences. We're going into deep subjects and sharing deeply about intimacy and all the things about that. So just notice who you're around and let's go. Hello. Welcome everyone to our latest episode of our podcast. I am Jess, the Playful Domme, joined here as always by the lovely Lisa, the Poly Wife, and the amazing Ella, the Virgin. We have covered many topics so far. We hope that you've been enjoying each of our sessions together, being the fly on the wall, so to speak, and getting to tune in. And we so appreciate the questions and the comments you've been sharing and how excited you've been. Thank you so much for being part of our community. It's so exciting to have you with us. So today I wanted to, I got inspired to share a personal story. And I want to preface this by saying, I am a very red-blooded woman. I love my man to myself. I've had some trials and tribulations and navigating. Am I someone who's interested in being into polyamory and or ethical non-monogamy, which I fully support. I see the value of it. It just isn't my flavor. So, and understanding, leaning into what is it to show up for my partner with his fantasies when they don't involve me, and what does that mean and how does that show up in my life? And so I have a really great story arc that has a very surprising twist at the end that I think you listeners will be surprised by and delighted. But I wanted to see how Lisa feels, because Lisa is the poly wife, of course, and she has her stable of men, and and fantasies go both ways. For me, myself, my story is about sharing how I support my partner in his fantasies. But Lisa, I would love to hear your thoughts.
Well, I think that, thank you so much. I was actually having a conversation with a man that I haven't played with yet. He and I are friends. We've known each other online. We have an association in common, which is how we knew each other originally. And he's coming to my area, and we have been talking literally for 3 years probably 5 years about playing. And we've been missing each other's schedule in COVID for the last 3 years, but he's finally coming to the Florida, to the Tampa area. And he was looking for something to do. And he really loves multiple lovers at one time. And I've been clear with him that I am not interested in being with him the first time with other people. Yeah. And so he has this fantasy of wanting a threesome. And we talked about going to a club, which is another one of his fantasies. And I was like, I can totally take you to a club. And he's like, well, would you like to fuck another guy? And I was like, nope, I don't fuck strangers. I'm not a swinger. But if you wanted to fuck somebody else, I would totally watch. Like, that would be such a turn on for me. So he can have his fantasy and I can participate, but I can participate to the level that I want to participate. And he got really excited about that because he gets to sort of knock a couple of things off of his list, which is going to a club and being with a couple of women, but he can play with me and play with her. I've had a couple of threesomes where I wasn't actually engaging with the other woman necessarily, but I've watched and it's been so much fun. So the idea of doing what you're comfortable with is completely possible, even if you're not interested in polyamory or swinging. There are ways that if you want to be creative, you can find ways to be able to participate. And I feel like there's room for everything. It's just a matter of having the imagination to think through what is possible.
I love it.
I want to really address too that, like, here you are, it's been 5 years you've been talking to this guy. You're finally getting the opportunity to see him. There's been this buildup for years now. And, you know, and here are his fantasies. And I know many women would want to jump at the chance to please the man and say yes to something that maybe they're a no to deeply inside, but it's like, here's this chance. And if I say no, I might not ever get it again. And so there's this space of sacrificing our sovereignty and our safety, quote unquote, safety within self, really. And so I'm curious, because you're sharing about laying down boundaries, and you're able to do it in a way that you're not coming across as some, you know, what could be conveyed or misconstrued as stuck up or frigid or whatever, the controlling, you know, So I'm curious about how you're able to spin it like you did about, you said, being creative, and how to not make it sound making him wrong, while also not putting yourself in a self-harming way by saying yes to something that you're not a yes to.
I think that's a really great question. And I think that part of it is imagination. And the thing is that I am poly, so it doesn't bother me to be with him with other people, right? So because I don't have an issue with sharing, if he wants, I don't also feel like, oh, well, he's coming all this way, why wouldn't he just want to spend the time with me? Well, we're friends. He can be a good friend to me. I can be a good friend to him. But in terms of being lovers, you know, anything is game. So and here's the thing, he keeps bringing up all of these threesomes. So it's clearly something that he wants to do. He's very interested in it being two women, not him and another man with me. So, because I have, you know, lovers who would be totally into that as well. And he's like, well, we can hang out with you and your friend. I was like, well, if my friend's not available, that won't work. But if we went to a club, we can go to a club where the rooms allow you to have, if you just want to be watched, they can look through the windows. If you want to have people play with you, you just leave the door open and that welcomes people into the room. So I'm giving him options that can satisfy, and this is part of the negotiation, and it's the part of the sexual adventures that I'm having, which I don't enjoy the most, but I relish the most, right? I'm happy to talk about what our boundaries are, because the truth is if he wants to do something I'm not interested in, I'm not interested in getting into bed with him. So I'm making sure that I'm going to be happy and safe the entire time. And quite frankly, if he's here and he ends up wanting to be with 2 or 3 girls all at the same time, I'm happy to grab my wand and masturbate watching him do that. I'm fine with that. And he feels like I'm participating in some way, but I don't have to be in it to enjoy it myself. And I don't have to stop him from enjoying it as well. If he wants one-on-one time with me, I'm totally fine with that. So I think the thing to do is be willing to have the conversations and not be if he said, well, I don't want to do it, I'm like, okay, fine. I don't need to add another lover to the list of my stable, right? I'm happy. I've got the people in my life that I want. He's just a friend that we want to add benefits to. So we either do it the way both of us enjoy it, or we don't do it. And it doesn't harm either of us.
super fascinating.
Yeah,
So I'm
it really
curious.
is.
I'm curious because I know you have some pretty strong protocol for gender bonding, or excuse me, gender bonding, fluid bonding, you know, and exchanging fluids and stuff like that. So how does that work when you're fine with him hooking up and having sex with whoever it is, no holds barred? You mentioned that you don't fuck strangers. So how does that work in terms of, you know, him being intimate with her in the same moment or next moment being intimate with you? I'm curious how that works.
That's a great question too. So for me, and we actually addressed that this morning. And he says, oh, does that, because he asked me, he says, oh, does that mean that you can just, you know, fuck anybody bareback by the pool? And I was like, you absolutely can. However, if you are fucking somebody else without a condom, then you'll have to use a condom with me. Because, and when are you having your panels? So he's going to have his STI panels done just before he comes, like a week before he comes to Florida, because that's my requirement.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And if he wants to play with somebody else and he doesn't want to use a condom, I'm fine with that. He can do that, but then he's going to have to use a condom with me. If he isn't going to fluid bond with anybody else, and I don't require him to use a condom because I've known him for 5 years. He's a married man. He's totally safe and careful. And, you know, I do know that he doesn't want to bring anything home to his wife. So he's careful, but I'm okay with laying down my boundary and saying, look, you can do anything you want, but if you're going to do bareback, then I need a condom when you're with me. And the chances are I think he's more talk than he is action. He's admitted that he's kind of nervous about going to any kind of a club. So I told him, I was like, I'll be your Sherpa. I'm totally happy. I offer these services. If somebody comes to the Tampa, Orlando area, I'm totally happy to take you to a club, show you around, play with you even safely, and make sure that you have a good time. But that good time may not include me sexually, but you know, you'll have fun. I can absolutely guarantee that. So yeah, again, it's about being brave enough to have the conversations that will protect my own self-interests. So I'm not awesome at it. When I have another partner, my Sapio partner, there are things that I sometimes struggle communicating with him, but I'm growing more and more bold in my communication. So I'm not afraid to do that. Like I asked one of my lovers the other day, I was just, you know, you don't drink, but you called me and it was clear that you were drinking. And I'm just wondering if there's anything that I can do to support you. That doesn't seem like normal behavior for you. Is that okay? So it was a hard conversation, a hard question for me to ask, but I have nothing to lose by asking it. If I lose him in a relationship, okay, I lose him in a relationship. The truth is they're lining up to play, right? I don't have them lined up necessarily.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
bottom line is there's a lot of fish in the sea.
But there are guys that I had started conversations with that because my stable became full that I'm not talking to, that I can go back to and say, okay, hey, listen, something's opened up and I'd love to meet you. It's transactional up until the point where it becomes, for me, poly-wise, intimate. Because at that point, I've got to have at least a connection with them. And it's not just about sex, it's about the connection. So, you know, if I lose a sex partner, I'm okay with that. I'm more upset about losing the friendships.
Fascinating.
So I think one of the key things I hope that if you're listening that you really get is the importance of direct conversation and being bold, being willing to risk it, being willing to put things on the line, to speak your truth or your desires, your needs, or something that just doesn't work for you anymore. And you know, we have this sense of like there's scarcity in the world. It's so hard to find a good man, and or whatever the story is that we've been told, or maybe even looking around us we see, which is another reason why I so love having Lisa on here, because she's direct proof of otherwise. So you know, once you know that it exists, you can't deny it. you can't say it doesn't exist because we have proof of it existing. There's proof that Lisa's that she's built, this really beautiful network of men that she has various degrees of intimacy and connection with and play. And she's reached a point where she's not, oh, if he goes away, what am I going to do? And I'm going to be alone and no one can fulfill me. And she's like, clearly has proof otherwise, because she has a stable of men. So to our listeners that are peering into this conversation, if you can feel a little emboldened, and even if it comes down to what would please me, what would feel good, and it can be the straight question of what would please me now. And that's something that one of the first things I taught Lisa was like, what would please me now? What would please me to have a man cook my dinner, or it would please me to go for a stroll and hold someone's hand, or it would please me, just getting used to that and then learning to ask for what you want. But if you don't know what you want, you can't ask for it. And it's also good to know what you don't want, so you can go from there. So Ella, what do you get out of what Lisa's shared so far?
I think it's fascinating. I just love the transparency and again, the boundaries. I mean, she has boundaries. She can still play, but she doesn't have to, she still has, again, clear boundaries, I guess. So I think that I hear that time and time again from us speaking and you guys. And it's so refreshing. I think that's the biggest thing. And then the question, I was just in deep thought, what would please me now? That's a very profound question. So I was stuck on that just now. So anyway, I love it.
And that question, that comes from Midori. So I want to make sure I give proper credit. I learned from Midori. I took a Forte Femme intensive, and that was one of the questions is what would please me now? And a statement that I like to tell myself, and I started saying this last year, is I do what pleases me. How about you?
Yeah.
I do what pleases me.
Mm-hmm. I've done better at that, definitely, in the last year. I think with COVID, especially when you have some time to slow down and reflect, it's like I find my life switching. I want to spend time. If I'm doing something and I enjoy it, I don't want to be done until I'm done. I want to spend time with people that I really enjoy, not just because I feel like I have to. And one of the biggest things is saying no. I mean, I think it's difficult to say no. For me, it is. And so it's like, no, thank you. Right. And feeling good about that. So, and then I think the other thing I started this new year is I wanted to be the smallest person in the room. So doesn't matter what you're doing, something brand new. So it's been really a great adventure. Just lean in and try it. I'm generally fearless anyway, but just really being fearless. I mean, traveling to a place you've never been, to meet with people you've never been with that are, again, much bigger than you. And I'm like, all right, let's try this. So for me, that's been the biggest thing. So that was a little bit of a boondoggle there.
I got a great lesson from Amy, who was briefly on our show with her husband, Orion, who's my boyfriend.
Yeah.
And they're here for the winter. And she was she had been getting to know a new partner. And when they finally met and were going to be intimate, he was, making his plays and, engaging in the things that he loves to do. And she stopped him and she said, whoa, 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 whoa. And this is what she said. I would really love it if you came and if you approached this with a sense of curiosity instead of a sense of knowledge. Because what you've done in the past has worked for the women that you've been with, but you don't know me. And I like things super slow. He happens to be a kind of a fast mover. And she says, I'd really prefer that you imagine that you've never been with anybody before because you've never been with me. And it's something to be curious about instead of coming to me with what has worked in the past. And I thought that was
amazing.
Brilliant. It was
brilliant.
And this was a man who claims to be incredibly coachable. So she and I haven't had a chance to catch up, but they were, finally intimate again a second time. And I think that I'm eager to find out how it went and how it's going to move going forward. So I was really excited about that. And that day, I took that information and I went to Sapio and I said the same thing to him. I said, I realized that when I give you a blowjob, because I put it in my sense first, instead of telling him to do things differently, I said, I'm going to come to you with a sense of curiosity instead of a sense of knowledge, because I realize what I'm doing with you, I do over and over and over again.
Yeah,
and it works for
right.
everybody. My
Right.
experience is good, but I'd really love to know what you like more, what you like best. And I want to sort of explore and be curious. And it worked really well.
To piggyback on that, a lot of my work of doing sensual body work with men has largely been that like of course there's some moves that are successful, but a lot of it is about tuning into the guy's cock and listening, and it's intuitive, and women are intuitive. We're intuitive people, we're intuitive lovers, it's almost innate in us. And I cannot tell you how many times I have touched a man's cock and he has been blown away. He didn't even know he could feel that way. He didn't even know. And I would say, like, oh, I haven't done this stroke before. That's your cock talking. Your cock is telling me how to run my hands over it. And he would be just like stunned, confounded, blown away, because also men have become very rote in how they stroke. I know this works. This is the thing. I can get off, da da da. They just want the thing that they know most. I won't say all, but from my experience of men, they're used to they have their own stroke that they know will get them off or whatever it is. So to have my hands be listening in and communicating with their cock, it's like a telepathy kind of thing almost. My mind doesn't even process it. My hands just start moving. So to that point of like approaching a man's cock with curiosity and love, with curiosity, I channeled the spirit of Paris. I know this is a little woo, but I channeled the spirit of Paris a couple of years ago, and she talked about really exploring like Paris, like in like a new lover, of course we have the landmarks and but it's everything underneath it, so taking our time to explore our lovers' bodies and like noticing that, oh, when I nibble here or I kiss here or I touch here, there's like this really exciting reaction, because each of our bodies are wired so similarly yet so differently. So it's a beautiful experience, and I think it's very reverent. I think it's a reflection of honor and respect to like come to a lover and see them with new eyes, and touch them with new eyes, new hands, and that's something that you can do over and over again. Like even if you've been in a relationship for years, you could still come up and be like, I would really love to touch you like I've never. It's like as if it was my first time. Would you be open to that?
I love that. That's beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful.
So about fantasy. Oh, Lisa, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say that it's a perfect segue into fantasy, because a person may have had a fantasy and have maybe acted out that fantasy with other people, like having a threesome, for instance. But in this case, this boy toy, a friend of mine I called him Boy Toy when we first started talking. Boy Toy has done threesomes often with his wife. So his fantasy is, he loves that fantasy and he wants to play it out with his lovers. I'm just going to do it a little bit differently. So by being willing to have that conversation and be open to having a different approach because it's a different lover, I think just sort of segues into your fantasy conversation that I was going to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. So my story that I wanted to share, this is more around masturbation rather than like the physical manifestation of fantasy. But my partner early on, he shared how there was this thing that he that he engages in when he's masturbating that is so fundamental for him in terms of feeling safe, feeling seen, feeling understood, feeling supported, feeling encouraged, like all of these things that were like, and he was being very vulnerable sharing it with me. And so what it was initially is he has a few photos of sexy women, different photos, and whoever he was dating, and he had a limited range of success about this or engagement from his partners in the past, but ideally the woman would choose one photo, and he would have that would be his photo to masturbate to and have fantasy about. And he was very, and then for the partner to be encouraging him, like, you know, giving, almost like being his cheerleader through the experience with messages and things like that. And I initially had tremendous reservations about it. I don't watch porn. I don't look at photos. Like, you know, I get engaged in a different way. You know, and how I view masturbation, I view more as self-pleasure and connection and, you know, So, and then like the thought of like, wow, he's going to fantasize about someone else when he's with me. Like, what does that mean? And he was very reassuring that like, it's not about that, like he feels super, super close to me. It's a different act. It's like compartmentalized. Men have a way to compartmentalize things, I think. Whereas I think women, we tend to like just blend everything together and everything weaves into the next thing. So it's like, you know, so I had some big hangups about it. So I was very resistant. And I would give him a little bit, and then I didn't like how I was being brought into this situation. So I started, but there's also this thing, and this is the thing. This was a big thing for me because I was noticing my resistance, and I was like, wait a minute, I have taken on almost as an oath that to me, a dominatrix, and this was by Mistress Kyla Yee who said this, a dominatrix is someone who creates a safe space for others to explore all aspects of themselves without judgment. And so
I would like, say that again. That was great.
Yeah, a dominatrix is someone who creates a safe space for others to explore all aspects of themselves without judgment. And I have taken that into every realm of my life, whether I'm a dom or a coach or a shaman or you know, or priestess, whatever it is, I've really taken that in as creating a safe space for others and allowing that. And then I'm being confronted, right? Like here I am, human, red-blooded, full woman, Jess, who's got like her partner saying like, I want you to be part of, help me with this fantasy and to support me in this. And I am having resistance as a woman in this relationship. And I was like, if I say that I am a dom and that I create a safe space for others to explore all aspects of themselves without judgment, then I better show up for that.
Yeah.
And not have, well, but in my personal life, it's
different. Yeah, exactly.
That's not walking the walk. And I want to walk the walk. So, and that's something that hopefully anyone that's known me or listened to me, I've really strived through and through to show up fully, that it's not just on the screen I'm one way and behind the scenes I'm another, that like it's through and through. So that was my test. That was my test of like, oh, I got to giddy up and show up in this thing. Or not, and say like, you know what, this doesn't work for me and I don't want that. Like that was an option, but for me, I lean in. When I feel resistance, I lean in. That's the thing. And that's part of like, that's where the growth is. Whatever because whatever I'm resistant are my own hangups. They're my own conditioning, how I view things, you know, whatever, my own triggers, things that have happened in the past, but there's an opportunity to lean in and grow. And so I did that. So the next part of the leaning in was, oh, what if I picked the girl? And like, oh, here's a really cute friend of mine, like, what if we did this? That was a disaster. That did not go well. Do not bring in friends that you know into fantasies. This just doesn't work out, because then I'm like, oh, he's getting off on my friend.
Yeah, right.
I'm there, but I'm not, and I'm encouraging him, and this does not feel good. So that was a crash and burn, and this is also part of the dance. This is part of the like feeling it out. You know, you get to try new things, but the important thing, I always bring it back to a state of play, in the spirit of play. That like it's okay. You're like, kind of like what Lisa was saying about being curious. I love being curious. I'm like, okay, well, what if we tried this, and how about that, and tweak this? And it's kind of like you take your favorite recipe, and then maybe you add a special spice here, and oh, that didn't work. Oh shit. All right, well, we won't do that one again. Okay, how about if we tried it with this flavor? Ooh, I like how that flavor is, you know. So it's just like kind of applying that. So then I got introduced to a deeper level, which is how he has his masturbation station, and there's toys he uses. He has a setup that he has, you know, things like that. Like there's this whole thing. So I went from being on the outside of choosing a photo and giving some words of encouragement, to now being in the space of him in that another super deep level of vulnerability. I freaking love it. I love when people are vulnerable with me. I think it's such a reflection of trust and feeling safe, which again is what I'm very much about. So now I'm in his space. Now I'm in this thing. And then it's like, well, how can I engage more? Like, okay, so now I'm going to sit behind him, and I will hold him, and I will caress him in a way as he's having his masturbation to this other person. And then this photo. And then I started saying, like, he mentioned that he sometimes has little backstories to help him get into the scene. So this is where the twist happens. So I started telling a story, and telling the story of how, like, setting up the scene and going along and building up the thing. And what was starting to happen was almost like hypnosis. So as I am saying that he's getting revved up and the things are turning on and da 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 da, like he's feeling it in his body. He's having the experience as I'm telling him the story. And there was a time where I was saying, and you're going to come in 3, 2, 1. And he's never had that happen before. It happened. I said that.
Wow.
And he's like, this isn't going to work. This isn't going to, it worked. Like, what? Like, you know, so, and what took him a considerable amount of time to reach a point of orgasm, we were able to do it much faster. And because I'm there, I'm narrating, I'm supporting him, I'm touching him, I'm holding him, I'm encouraging him. So we have a method now. Like, we started out a couple of times. Now it's been enough times, like it is like hands down, it will work. It is 100%. It's like we're at nearly 10 for 10. I don't know what number it is, but we've had success every single time. So I know it's and now I know, I'm like, oh, okay, we can play together. We can have amazing sex. If he hasn't still had his orgasm, then we move over to this space. I step into this role. He gets off. Everything is good. And it's fantastic. But here's the surprising twist. I didn't realize this, but that I actually got turned on by telling this story. I noticed at the end, when he's done and complete, I would like kind of like feel myself. I'm like, oh my God, I am so wet. What the fuck is this? Like, I showed up to like tell you a story to get you off, and then I get turned on. Like, what? Like, so it's like this like huge this is so revelatory for me, because on so many, and there's I'm sure there's like points that people are noticing as you're listening to this, but to like feel my initial resistance, and I could have shut it down and we wouldn't have had any, it would have been a very, and there were times where I told him I was very resistant, which had him feel more shame and felt more pulling inward. And then for me to recognize, I want to show up because I want him to show up for me. And I want to embody that which I want for myself. And so I chose to lean in and to show up. And then I started taking things up to the next level for him, to the point now where he's like, it is the sexiest, hottest, fucking fantasies possible? You being here with me and you're telling me these stories, and like it's beyond anything that he's ever experienced, that he's ever had. I didn't go into it being like, I'm going to be the best. I want to be the best. I would tell anybody that, but actually showing up and leaning in and doing the thing and then getting the turn on. That's the twist. So we don't know what we don't know. You will not know how things are, how you feel about something. And can we caretake on ourselves and do our self-care? Be honest. They're like, oh, something's coming up for me and I'm going to, work through it or whatever it is. But now I'm like, I kind of get excited. The other day we had like several scenarios. I told so many stories. I'm so good at storytelling. I had no idea. I was so good at like I see the scene, I see the photo, and I'm like, okay, we've been invited to this dinner party, or we're driving out of town and it's just the two of us, and we want to go someplace that's new and new environment, and we're at this bar and like, oh, and just like kind of pulling it and playing it in. And he's like, these stories. So and that has actually become a really playful, fun thing. So that is something that I want to share about fantasy and what's possible. And I get the hangups and I get the resistance and I understand all those things, and being willing to move, not knowing what's on the other side, and then creating something even more magical, even better, even sexier. Like, and now I am the best. He can't have that experience without me. So I've kind of, in a way, ruined it for him. So that's great too. Yeah.
That is fantastic. Wow, Jess. I'm like speechless. Lisa, I'm sure you got some thoughts on that. Oops, hold on, she's got a few.
Yeah, I love the idea of giving him the stories, but I am grateful that you told a little bit about the stories, because I was kind of like, maybe I can do that. But interestingly enough, I had asked, as my curiosity thing with Sapio last week, I asked him what he liked to do while he masturbated, because I wanted we could do mutual masturbation. And part of it is part of my kink is I like to be objectified. So I said, is there anything I can do while you're masturbating that will, sort of intensify it? And he said, I love to have my balls massaged, and I would love to be able to sort of massage your breast at the same time. I was like, he says, that will put me over the edge. I'm like, let's do it. So I like the idea of, I think that's an interesting way to play too, is to help each other not help each other, but participate in each other's masturbation. It's just something different completely.
It's totally different. And I mean, kudos to my partner for willing to be vulnerable and knowing what he likes, and also facing that I have some pretty strong opinions about things, and then kudos to me for showing up and playing. But yeah, the storylines, I mean, they've been everything from, I'm just trying to think of a few. Like I said, one is like we're out of towners and we come into this bar that looks like a local bar, and it's like this really cute town, and the bartender is like super bubbly and fun and exciting and hot, and she's like purposely bending over, and just like stuff like that, and like but there's like a level of and then he's asked me to be in the fantasy as well. So then like stepping into the fantasy and how I show up in this like supportive role or participatory role, and here's another last twist. I'm starting to realize that what's getting me off when we're together, or when he's doing G-spot stimulation or something like that, is a fantasy that I have of a woman climbing on top of him and having sex. How is that possible? How is it that me, the one that like wants it all to myself, that's not into poly or swinging or like anything like that, but the kink, so the taboo thing, right? Because kink is about like taboo stuff. The thing that's consistently now gotten me aroused was a fantasy of her and I both sucking on his cock and, you know, stuff like that. And I'm there, but then like she climbs on top of him and has sex. And then her getting off and him getting off got me off. Like, that's the thing. That's the twist. That's the other double what twist thing of like how to wrap my head around that. And like, so then there's a part of me that's like, I think I would want to experience that after I know like we're good, like good, solid, like irreplaceable kind of thing. I'd be interested in trying that. So
wow.
Yeah. So this is like another twist of, you know, what is it to let go and allow ourselves to feel into our desires, and being able to do that in a way where we feel safe and can be seen and vulnerable. So those are the mic drops for me today.
Beautiful story. Thanks for sharing. Not even a story. I mean, thank you for sharing your experiences. That's fantastic, Jess. Because again, we've talked about this on past episodes about, you know, again, that's our hang up. So we all have them. And again, you're more open than most, but again, the leaning in is really important, I think, and being playful and the curiosity, supporting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Jess, thank you.
Yeah. Lisa, do you have any final thoughts, shares, anything?
Yeah, I think I feel really complete about the episode, but I just wanted to tell our listeners that I am actually in the car driving to a meetup with one of my lovers.
Meet up with one of her lovers. And that's the last thing I got.
Oh, she's coming back.
Can you hear me?
We couldn't. So you're on a meetup on your way to see one of your lovers?
To see one of my lovers. I don't know if I spoke about it before, but it was I went on my tour last summer to visit some of my lovers in my other states, and this is one of the lovers that I met. Or he was here last winter, and he's coming back. So he's just in for the weekend. So we're just meeting in a park, and we're gonna have some fun in the car before he goes off and meets his Muggle monogamous friends. And so it's just kind of exciting to have. So all of this talk is really getting me all sort of juicy and sexy and happy about my little meetup now, my little date this afternoon.
Oh, so fantastic. Can't wait to hear how a romp in the car at a park goes. And can I just say, like, how great is that? Like, Lisa, I can't remember how old you are, but like, how old are you again? I want to say
58.
58, yeah. 58-year-old woman going to a park to have a romp with a guy in her car. Like, yes.
Like us as teenagers or young 20s,
yes.
right? Oh.
I feel that way right now with my partner, and I'm like, I feel like this is one of the best phases of my life, really. That, like, this is better than when I was in college.
Yeah.
Better than when I was in college. Better, like, so fun. And we're in our early 40s. What? How many people get to do what we're doing? I spent 6 hours in bed with them the other day. Like, what a gift, what a gift to have that kind of to be able to create a life and design it like that. So Ella, last thoughts, shares, questions?
I love you, ladies. So thank you again. Just for me, it's all so new. So the theme is always the same. Thank you for being transparent. Thank you for sharing. It's so refreshing to have these conversations. Again, with no judgment. So thank you again, you guys. I love you too.
Yeah. Thank you all listeners for listening. Thank you to my partner for showing me ways that I can expand and deepen into myself and how to show up in my life and for others. There's so much that's available to us when we're willing to lean in, when we're willing and open to play, when we're curious, when we're saying yes to the thing, and when we feel the trepidation, knowing that maybe there's something there for us to explore. And so thank you all so much for listening. If you want to come join our community, we've created a private member group. We've got a link to that in our on our episode. We're also sharing some more developments that we have of offerings, both for myself and Lisa and Ella, and all the different ways we want to continue to be that safe space for you to know that you can come and play and explore, and know that we've got you. So thanks so much. We look forward to talking to you on our next episode. Bye for now.
Want more? Head over to theplayfulpodcast.com for all the juicy things we have to offer. From there, you can join our community where you can get access to after hours, attend upcoming workshops and events, and even book a session. Bye for now.